Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another great guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I share ideas, insights, and best practices for building professional relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, however, I'll be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, and these people share their knowledge to help us build better relationships, as well as help us understand why humans interact the way they do. That's a mouthful today. Today, our guest is Gary Wilburs, and he is a successful entrepreneur, and he's been one his entire life, and now uses the knowledge he's gained through his experiences to help individuals and organizations ascend to their peak through coaching, training, and speaking. He's the author of 4 books: Cultivate Positive Culture, Positive Culture Wins, 21 Ways to Attract, Retain, and Engage Millennials, and the High Achiever Leadership Formula. Gary's involved in his community. He's very involved in his community. He just shared with me he's on the bank board as well. But he has a passion for working with the Special Olympics in Missouri. He currently serves as the chair of the Special Olympics Missouri Board of Directors, and also the campaign chair for the Training for Life Campus Fund Drive, which funds the building of a state-of-the-art facility for the Missouri Special Olympic athletes. One of his greatest joys, he shares, is playing unified golf with Keith Luckenhoff. Is that correct?
That's correct.
A Special Olympic athlete. Gary and his wife, Dana, have 3 great kids, Chris, Adam, and Ellie, and they reside in Wardsville, Missouri. Gary, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me, Frank. I'm looking forward to this.
Now, there's a lot here. A lot to your intro, but I know there's a lot more to share. So if you kind of want to back up, we talk about this entrepreneurial life. It started, you say, your entire life. What was your first entrepreneurial gig? And then kind of move us forward.
My first entrepreneurial gig was I cut grass. I bought this old 60s van, and it was one of them 3-shift on the fly type van. Right. So that's where I got started. So that was in high school, did odd jobs and mostly yard cutting and leave and whatever else somebody would pay me for, I would do. And then on the weekends, this was one of them 2-seaters. So we would put a 3rd seat in the middle. My buddies and I would drive it down on the boulevard. It was a junker, but 3-speed, you had to have a little bit of fun.
Sure. Oh, that sounds like high school in a small town.
That's right. So a lot of fun. But then where I started out, my first business was Tubs of Fun, besides doing that part of it. And we sold these soft-sided hot tubs. And that opportunity got me into the mobile phone industry, which today we call the wireless industry, and everyone has one of those phones. But I got into it back in 1990 when it was first coming in to Jefferson City, Missouri. Started out just doing sales, and then had the fortunate capability, because I started the Tubs of Fun business, that had the opportunity to take over the dealership in Jefferson City. And it was just a 2-person operation. And we grew that organization from 2 individuals to about 150. And we had about 15 storefronts. We were at our height. And then in 2012, I sold that business because I could see the trend. They were consolidating dealers. And I always believed, the song Kenny Rogers says, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And I wanted to get out before they exited me out of the business. And it worked out really well. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that.
Oh, good. That's a great story. That's a great story. I'm sure there's stories behind the hot tub story, but that's for another podcast, not mine.
That's right. There is some funny ones there too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So 2012, you sell the business. That's 8 years ago. You didn't do that well that you've done nothing for 8 years. So you've been doing Doing a lot of writing, obviously.
Yeah, doing a lot of writing. And what I did is really decided at that time, what did I want my passion, purpose to be? The business was able to set me up in a good position, but I still had to be able to do something. I had several other smaller businesses that I had at that time. And I really found out to be an entrepreneur is a great thing, but I love doing so many multiple things that I had to really kind of concise that down, because I told my staff, they did a little roast for me when we sold the business, and we had kind of a little celebration. And I told them that I was going to write a book. Well, nothing happened in 2013, 14, 15. I said I was going to get started. 16 is when that first book actually launched. So I really had to realize that if I wanted to really do speaking and really make some changes, I needed to concentrate on what's most important. And my passion was training, helping give a message. And I really decided to go to the culture route because that's what I believed in my business. Because I knew that culture made a difference in people's business. It makes a difference in our life. So I can talk personally about that, but it also makes a difference in their business if they take their business. And we know the research now, and we see it all the time. And it's not about the pool tables and the snacks it's having an environment that people want to be part of their business. And when they do that, to give you an example, I think it's pretty cool. This year, just about a month ago, a few of my farmer staff started what my business was called Mid-America Wireless, MAW for short. They started a MAW reunion page on Facebook. We have over 70 some members in the group that used to work for us already in the group. I didn't start it. It started from some of my farmer team members. But I can tell you, it's pretty exciting going in there and hearing some of the messages of when they worked for us and some things they remember. And one of the things they talk about is that environment, that culture that we created, that they feel part of that team. And still today, after 8 years, they have them say that to me. I think really, I know it makes a difference. So business owners have to understand, when you're talking about relationships, your people that work for you, that's part of the relationships of what you're creating within your company.
So why do you think culture matters? I mean, it's this thing you can't see it. You know, when you're in a good one, and you surely know when you're in a bad one, but
I think it's that kind of that extra sauce that really adds to the bottom line. It's not able to be seen, but what happens is people, when they feel part of it, because we spend so much of our time at work anyway, that people are willing to give that extra. They're really able to come forward because they realize that now, instead of it being demanded by someone to tell me I have to do it,
right.
I want to do it. So my part of it that I really see is, I think business is what they do is when they create that type of culture, they're getting everything out of their people. They're getting more out of them. And as people come on, it creates, of course, today, we're in pandemic time, and maybe some people are having a tough time finding jobs. I mean, our employment here in Missouri is, a little over 4.5%. So it's still not that high. But what it does, it helps you attract people to your organizations. And I think that's the other key that culture can really create is when you have a great culture, people want to be part of that, because just like you said, when you're in a bad one.
Yeah. Now, when do you think culture matters more, when things are going well or when they're going bad? Or
I think both, but I think the biggest one is when they're going tough, when things are tough, because then everybody knows they have to kind of bear down, have to be part of that. You've mentioned that I'm on a bank board, with our bank team members and stuff during the PPP time. I mean, it was crazy. They weren't able to stay at home because they were trying to help these small business owners move forward to be able to get those loans through. But what they did, they had a great environment that they were in. So people wanted to be part of that because they knew it wasn't just about the bank, about putting out loans there. They knew that they were helping their small businesses survive and thrive during a time that was very difficult for them. And so when it's a difficult time, people are willing to step up and they want to be part of that because, again, it's not about them. It's a bigger picture. And we all know that we get more satisfaction when we're helping someone else than when we're helping ourselves.
Now, in your organization and building this company from 2 to 100 plus, Did you know from the get-go that culture was the answer? Or was it kind of looking in the rearview mirror and saying, gosh, I'm so thankful I did all the right things?
Some of it was rear view mirror. Some of it during the time, though, there was a point in there about 5 to 7 years in when we were really starting to kind of take off in growth. I realized that we can make a real impact by really kind of creating that unit. And back then we didn't call it culture, but I wanted it to be an environment. And I called it a learning environment because what I started out doing was training. I did a lot of training with our team. I did a lot of Franklin Covey training with them. And that's when you would buy the books from them versus having the access pass things that are available now. But I believe that if I can make them better while they're with us, hopefully they'll stay a long time, but then we can make a difference. And it came to me about 10 years in as we were doing some of this training. I had a team member that left us. And of course, we didn't want them to leave us, but we were in retail sales. So we
Sure.
knew that was going to happen. But I believed if I could keep them where maybe if they would stay 6 months or 12 months and they stayed for 2 years, I got them longer than most companies did in retail. Well, a lady had left me and she sent me a Christmas note and said, Gary, I just wanted to let you know, because of the training that I had with you, she went into real estate. She goes, I was the #1 real estate agent in my office this year. And she goes, I have no doubt it's because of the training that I got while I was with your company that helped there. Now, I didn't do all that. She took the training and there was other people that trained, but I created the environment. And I think that was the key to know you can become better. And that became a message I started selling our team on, because I did onboarding classes and I did them in person. The first day they were with our company, I was with them for 4 hours talking about what our philosophies of our company was. And that was one of them I would share with them. You can become a better person if you want to. Now you have to sign up. You have to make some of the sacrifices to attend the classes, do the homework, do the things that's needed. But this is going to stay with you the rest of your life then as you move forward.
Okay. You've got this business and you build it and you sell it, and culture is a huge part of it. And now you've kind of morphed forward to really helping businesses. And that's got to be incredibly frustrating, because it's one thing to kind of deal with your own kids, but try and deal with somebody else's because you're not there all the time. Why might culture be lacking in other places? I'm sure you see it.
Yeah. Oh, I think the biggest challenge is most people don't know the value of it. And most business owners, we don't look at the value of what it can bring us. So the hardest part is now when I'm coaching my clients and working with them, they haven't had that experience. I can talk about some of my history, but of course that becomes my story, not their story. So I really try to put it in their story. What do you want your organization to really be known for? And, I'll be honest, if I get an owner and it's only about profits and about generating for themselves, normally we don't match up very well. And that becomes a client that I have to disqualify, because I'm looking at how can you make people better? And as I went into the field that I went into now, that's really my passion. How can I help make others better? You said ascend to their peak. That's on purpose, because my company business name is Ascend. Ascend means trying to reach higher, but it doesn't mean, because I did this early in my career, thinking getting to the top of the mountain by yourself, it's lonely.
Yeah.
So the fun part about it is, who can I bring along to the top of the mountain to me? Who can I bring along to make them better as an individual? So I have to find those type of business owners, because I'll be honest, if I don't, we don't mesh, because if it's only about bottom line, or, there's a lot of business owners, they're in for one reason. And there's individuals like that they're in it. They go to work for a company because they're trying to make themselves to get to the next level, to get to the next step. Well, I'm looking for business owners that want to help bring others there and have that philosophy of, they say synergy is not 1 + 1, but 1 + 1 = 9 or 10 or 20.
Right.
Equals
Yep.
more.
Yep. I agree. Totally agree. But you probably walk in situations where they want to change. Is it ever so far gone? It's not about the profits. I just want a better, I want to leave a legacy. I want the community to like me. I guess I would hope it's not ever so far gone.
Those are actually the fun ones to go into because they've felt the pain. So now they're actually they'll listen better than sometimes businesses that are doing well.
Right.
They're like, well, we've been successful the last 10 years. What does it really matter if we have a culture that matters?
Right.
So actually some of those that you think sometimes are lost, the biggest thing is if they're willing to invest. And, invest, again, I don't mean foos tables and pool tables and, that part of it. Culture is so much more than that. It's really the environment. And I tell people all the time, you as the business owner, you can't create culture. The culture comes from the team. Now you can help impact it, but you can't create it because it comes from the team. Now you can help decide what that is, but with your team, let them help decide what that is too. So that's where relationships come so important, is because they've got to have the relationship. And it's not getting your managers around and saying, or leaders, what do we want our culture to be? Instead, it becomes the team deciding what do we want that culture to be? How are we going to look out for each other? How are we going to create something that's different than they can get at some others? There's quite a few banks to work for. And that's one thing I like is our bank has a family atmosphere that the board I'm on. I've been a little piece of that because I've done some training for them. But the thing is, they've created a culture by creating more of a family atmosphere. And when somebody goes down, they're very much in support of that. And then they do a lot of internal things to really build that family atmosphere that they have.
What are some things, I don't want you to don't give away the secret sauce, but what are some things that you might do or might tell somebody to start bolstering a culture to make the 180 or whatever it needs? Maybe it's just a 90-degree turn. I don't know.
I think it starts with, a lot of times you have to survey where you're at. And for business owners, that can be a tough one because I have a survey that I use that I go in and we let the team members, I call them team members instead of employees. I get word away from words like that. And I really have them survey it and try to get an honest feedback from our team. Now we'll set that up before we, of course, send the survey so it's not blind, so they know why we're doing it. And we're asking for that honest feedback. And I'll be honest, that's when you go into the business owner, it's tough because sometimes, from a scale of 1 to 10, they may not be passing grade. And that's hard for a business owner to understand and hear. And then we'll seek out more than just numbers. We'll try to really seek out what are some of the challenges that's there in the business. And then the nice thing is they've pinpointed some of your struggles. So now it's about responding. And the first time you take the survey, and I never send it via email, I always show up in person and show the report, and we talk about the tough things as well as good. And I said, now you need to dive into this deeper, and I've got a full report for you to be able to do that. But I want you to breathe first and just realize when you get done, because for some, I'll be honest, I did these in my own business. It kind of makes you mad at first.
Yeah.
You get the first initial response. You got to believe, I can't believe they said that. We do all these other things. Well, it's from their perception, not yours. And then once we get past that, then it's about really creating a game plan. Okay, which ones are our most highest priorities that we can make a difference on right away? Because some of them take 12, 24, or 36 months to do. But how can we start making an impact right away? And then the team starts to see that. And then you come back again, and I'm a firm believer, and you survey them again 6 months down the road. And you see how have you progressed, and you keep moving forward. And then you really look at bringing new people on. What do you want that to be for them? And you even have to look at your hiring and who are we hiring and what are we hiring for? So we're making sure we're hiring the people that fit the culture that we're trying to create.
Gotcha. I would imagine that has to be for some incredibly demoralizing too.
Yes.
But it's like you say, if you take your medicine, so to speak, and you're willing to do that, there will be change. If not, it's probably almost worse.
Yeah. If you don't do anything, you do the survey and then and a lot of times share the results, but then you don't make any moves. Well, then of course, for some on the team, that makes them realize, okay, I want to get off of this. I need to find someplace else to work because they realize that they're not going to make the changes they need to.
Yeah, you totally crush hope. I guess let's switch gears real quick here. Talk about what you call the high achiever mindset, if you want to share a little about that.
Yeah, when I wrote my first book, I really thought I needed to share my framework, and that's my framework I talk about. And to me, it works for anyone because we all know what mindset is. It becomes a mental attitude inclination. But the thing is, a high achiever kind of really has to set up some practices to make themselves successful. And it's not like I came up with these. Like most self-development, they've come over time from all the greats that are out there. But the four that I thought that people really need to have a high achiever's mindset is number one is energy. And part of that was my own personal story because I used to be 75 pounds heavier than I am today. In 2002, I made that decision to make that change. Luckily, it was when I was much younger and had metabolism on my side that I made that change. And within 11 months, I lost 75 pounds. Now, it's not just about losing weight, but what that energy did, I didn't realize how much it was crushing my creativity because the stress level, that was right at a time that my business was really growing. And of course, I thought the fast food places and everything else, because I was so busy, I just had to eat on the go. That was part of life. Well, instead, I didn't realize what it was doing for myself and my business. And of course, at that time, I had a very young family that it created a challenge too. So energy is about what you show up with. And I love the phrase, Brendan Burchard is the gentleman that said it, a mentor of mine. He says, the power plant doesn't have energy, it generates it. And we have to realize we have to generate our own energy.
Right.
You know, just like we're on a podcast today, but we have to decide to generate it. It doesn't just automatically appear. We've got to want it to come. So that's number one. The second one was all about connections, all about relationships, exactly what you talk about all the time, Frank. Realizing those relationships, how important and valuable they are for a lifetime. And, you know, we know with family how important it should be, but we even have people that need to look at that. Because sometimes they look at their spouse as someone, I'll be honest, I did it for a while, that my spouse, I was being very fortunate because I allowed her while my kids were young to stay home. That's what I thought in my head. Luckily, I never said it out loud, Frank. Right. And then I'd get home at night and I'd see there was laundry still in the laundry basket. And I'd wonder, why the hell wasn't that folded? Now, I never said that. I was smart enough as a guy to do that, but I thought it. I didn't realize everything she went through and the sacrifices she made for our children. So that was one relationship, my spouse, and I improved that. I had to get spiritual to be able to find that in myself because I was egotistical, thinking I'm bringing home the money. I'm giving her that opportunity to stay home. Well, she's a doctor of veterinary medicine. She has more education than I do.
Right.
And she made that sacrifice for our children, and it's made a difference in our life because of that. And it's made a difference in our children's life. And I think for generations on down the road. But also with our people, the relationships, you know, I still have relationships with people I did business with. And a lot of people will say, I bought my first mobile phone from you back in 1990, you know, and those relationships today has still benefit me.
Right.
And that's what we've got to realize is those connections are key, that never burn a bridge, as they say, because that relationship can be the next person to help you when you need that help that's available to you. The third one is all about influence. You know, our influence, this is a one time in leadership. I think it's either shown positively or negatively. And the thing is, what do you want your influence to be? I mean, right now, we're all going through challenges. We have to decide to have a great attitude. Someone else can't do that. We've got to make that choice, and we have that choice. So what do you want your influence to be? What do you want it to be at home? What do you want your influence to be with your coworkers? What do you want it to be with your team members that you have? You want that influence that you're a positive influence? As I said, you know, when I look at that Facebook group, I get a big smile on my face when they talk about the influence. And I'm not talking about my influence, but the influence that my company had for them. So that's the benefit I see, that people still say and want to be part of a Facebook group of a company that 8 years ago sold and is no longer in business, instead got consolidated up, that they want to be something part of that. That's an influence. And that's the team. I, again, don't take all the credit. So I don't want to sound egotistical there. I love that they want to be part of it. And then
I was going to just interrupt real quick. You sent me a copy of your book, and in the inscription, you talk about ripple effect. I mean, yes. And that's absolutely it, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, go ahead. Number 4.
And then the last one is all about integration. And I use the word integration because it's about what habits and disciplines we want to create. What changes do we have to make? All of us have changes. What changes do we want to make in our life? And what habits and disciplines do I have put in? It was kind of funny because going back to 2012 when they did the roast, one of the things they roasted me on was how disciplined I was on certain things. Like I like lunch at 11:30, not 12, not 12:30, at 11:30. And they said if you was going to lunch with Gary, you knew at 11:30 you were going to lunch. And it just becomes one of those habits and disciplines. But what do we need to put in our life to be able to allow us to reach those great results? And those 4 practices, it's not like you need all 4 every day, but when you need them, then what do you need to put in? How do you need to kind of create it? And it allows you to get the results I call great results, or really start to live for a purpose. And that's what people want to do. They want to live for that purpose that's there. So that becomes that high achiever's mindset. Energy plus connections plus influence plus integration allows you that great results, or really to live for a purpose. And that's what we're all looking for in life.
Okay. How can listeners help you?
I think the biggest is really, if you want to learn some more, go out, and the book I've got is Cultivate Positive Culture. That's my latest one, 10 Actions to Faithful Living. It's a fable on the first part of it. So it's a story format. And then I give you action of how you can help yourself. And it's not like you'll need all 10 actions, but go out and buy that book and see what action do you need to put in to move forward. Because I think that's the best way I can serve them to starting out with, is really feeling, where are you at? Taking a kind of a status point of saying, where are you at and where do you want to go? And that's a great book to really look at your life through a story. And what we end up doing through stories is we put ourselves into it and find out where you're at. And you can get it at cultivatepositiveculture.com, or you can go on Amazon or any of the booksellers out there, and you can buy it online too. So whatever is most convenient for the buyer.
Okay. Best way to get a hold of you through your website, GaryWilburs.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, GaryWilburs.com, or check me out. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. So you can check me, Twitter, any of those. Just look up Gary Wilburs and you'll find me on any of those areas.
And I want to put a plug in for your podcast, chargepodcast.com. Tune into that.
I have this great guest coming up that's going to be on real soon.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, thank you for joining us today. This was very insightful. Great stories. Love the stories.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Frank. And I would tell everyone, what you're talking about with relationships, that's the number one key. Build on those relationships you have. And don't forget the ones you used to have, because we can reach into people on Facebook, but the thing is, connect with them also.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.